Hello, Jamie Stokes from Royal LePage Frank. I want to talk about rentals specifically for immigrants today. Just because I had a conversation earlier today with somebody who's a new immigrant to Canada. So I wanted to touch base on this because this is something that comes up quite often. Being in Canada, we're one of the most multicultural countries in the world. We have people from so many different countries around the world. It's incredible. So I live in Durham region, just outside of Toronto, and most of my neighbors here are actually immigrants from all over the world. I have neighbors from Italy. I have neighbors from India. I have neighbors from Bangladesh. My Bangladeshi neighbor is one of my absolute favorite neighbors. I had one across the street who I'm not sure where he was from. I know he was Muslim, and my favorite neighbor is actually Muslim. His wife wears a hijab, and they are super, super friendly people. My absolute favorite neighbors, just because of how friendly they are. You know, every time I see them, they're so kind, and they have this huge smile on the face, like they're just happy to see me every time I see them. They talk to me about my gardening because I do quite a bit of gardening at my house. I grow flowers and vegetables in my front and in my back. So I've brought them over things before. I actually met those neighbors because a few years ago I was working in my garage and his wife was home by herself and she was cooking something, and I know she makes excellent food because they've brought me over barbecue and things before, and it's fantastic. So she was cooking one day several years ago, and I was out working in my garage, and she started calling out for help. And after she opened her door and came out asking for help, I was like, mid sentence, I was like, "What do you need help with?" And she was very panicked, and then I heard the smoke detector, so I knew there was a fire in the house. I ran in my front door and grabbed my fire extinguisher and ran over to her house and put it out, and she thanked me, and I guess she'd been trying to put the fire out for a while because she had a bunch of different pot lids trying to smother. It was a fire in the kitchen, so I went over there and, just a quick spurt of my fire extinguisher put it out. And her husband came by, I think it was a day or two later, walking by, and he said, "Thank you very much for putting out that fire." My wife was very scared, and she couldn't put it out. She was there for a while trying to put it out. I could see because there was stuff melted in the kitchen that she had tried to put it out with. But that aside, that's how I met those neighbors. But they're absolutely wonderful, wonderful people. They know a lot about me. I've been very open with them, and they're wonderful people. So my dad said to me years ago, he said, I don't know how the conversation came up, but we were talking about immigration or immigrants or something like that. And this has stuck with me since he said it. I remember it very, very clearly. My dad says, people who come to Canada, it doesn't matter where they're from. Everybody wants the same thing in life. And it's so very true. He said, people come here, maybe for a better life or, more opportunities or something like that, but they all want the same things in life. They want a nice place to live. They want a safe place to live. They want generally a nice place to raise their family, and they want to have a family. So, if moving to Canada brings that for them, knock yourselves out. I'm very open to immigration. I find some people aren't open to immigration regardless of their background, if you can believe that. I've seen immigrants say they don't want any more immigrants here, which is pretty crazy. Canada is based off of immigration. We need immigration in order to keep things going in Canada. Same as in a lot of countries. They're kind of in the same position. So when immigrants come here, sometimes they've got lots of money. Other times they don't have much. My grandparents were immigrants here, and the typical story from years ago. We've had Irish, we've had English, we've had. I remember I lived in Scarborough years ago. At that time, there was a lot of Jamaican immigrants, Indian. Filipino. It kind of comes in waves. Right now, we're going to get a lot of. I notice there's a lot of Mexican immigrants. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of Ukrainian immigrants because of the war and things like that, and we've opened our houses to them. But they're not looking for anything anything that's going to affect Canada negatively for the most part. Like I said, my dad said that years ago. Everybody's looking for the same things in life. They just want to be happy, healthy, have a nice place to raise their family, and that's it, right? So if you take things down to the basics, that's pretty much what it is. Um, the problems that immigrants face when coming to Canada and trying to rent properties is that a lot of the time they're asked by the excuse me the landlords to put up several months worth of rent up front, which not only is that not allowed, but that's pretty tough for some people. They don't often immigrants don't have a full lengthy credit report for landlords to review, so this is kind of their insurance policy to make sure that they get a year's worth of rent. Well, I can tell you that that's not allowed. So, it's pretty unfair. And I don't want to say this happens to just immigrants. This happens, discrimination when it comes to rentals. It comes in all forms. It can come, it can be discrimination against immigrants based on their race. It can be discrimination against younger people based on their age. It can be discrimination on older people because of their age. It can be, based on male or female, your sex. It could be based on sexual orientation. I've seen it all. And I don't want anybody to get the impressions that there's only one race or two race that is racist when it comes to different things. I think I've seen it myself where it doesn't matter what your background is. You can be discriminatory against other people from any background, whatever country you're from or background you're from. I mean, we can't say whatever country you're from because Canada's so multicultural. We have people from around the world, and I would still call them Canadians. Some of my immigrant friends are the absolute most patriotic Canadians I have ever met. To the point where they cry tears when their immigration application is accepted, and I know several people who this is the case. They will out Canadian 99% of those of us born here. Like, I'm talking hands down. They're so grateful to have the opportunity to live in Canada, and they don't. A lot of them are actually that come here are somewhat wealthy. They come from wealthy families back home or something like that. Some not so much. They come here on their own, and a lot of the time they're what I would consider younger. I'm 40, so they're maybe a few years younger than me or around my age. They come here and they're just so grateful and so happy to have this opportunity to come to Canada and live somewhere that they've dreamed about. They say, I've dreamed of living in Canada since I was a little kid. So basing things on somebody's ethnicity or background or skin color or something like that. I've got colleagues who have and friends who have been in Canada. I'm 40, so they've been in Canada longer than I've been alive. So if you want to use the argument that, well, I have more of a right to be here, I think that argument's actually pretty hilarious. Because most of us here in Canada, regardless of skin color, we come from immigration. Look at me. I'm born in Canada. I'm 40 years old, but I'm here because of immigration myself. My parents are my grandparents are from Europe. So I mean, who's got the most rights to actually be in Canada? Well, if you're going to be discriminatory against anybody, how about we look at the natives here? Canada's got a terrible track record on how it treats its natives. We recently had the Pope visit. We've had residential schools here in Canada, evidence of it, mask raised, and it's absolutely disturbing how Canada treats its natives here. And, our government's kind of been the laughing stock going into world meetings lately in regards to things that are going on in Canada when it comes to, residential schools and I've got TikTok, and I follow um, a lot of natives on there, and their thoughts and opinions on the Pope coming to visit and things like that. But immigrants, I mean, since the beginning of time, we've pretty much treated immigrants pretty badly in Canada. So I don't like to see that. I don't know if you put a bunch of young kids, for example, kindergartners or something like that, in a room together with a bunch of toys, from all different backgrounds, all different skin colors, whatever. For the most part, they're going to get along. They might have some fights, but it's going to be over toys. It's not going to be over where they're from or what their beliefs are. So that just goes to show you that racism and hatred and things like that are taught in the home. They're not, or even through friends or society, but they're not, those aren't things that people are born with. These are learned traits. So we need to cut that out a little bit, well, a lot of it, and recognize that without immigrants in Canada, Canada would face a lot more struggles than what we do. We bring in a lot of immigrants who are very educated. We do that to raise the population because there are certain groups who just are not having kids these days. I don't, well, I've got my theories on the reasoning for that, but I've got 2 kids myself, and they live with me full time. I'm a single dad, but the problems that immigrants face when coming to Canada, when it comes to it, we're just going to discuss rentals here. So the landlords, one of my biggest pet peeves is the landlords asking for photo ID. That I've had arguments with realtors over that and told them what I think about it, and I'm going to tell you what I think about it. If you're an agent and I've submitted all the paperwork for my client who might be from a different background, and they have the income to pay for the place, they don't have any debts, and their credit is okay. It doesn't have to be amazing, because if they're, like I said, if they're a new immigrant here, they're not going to have an excellent credit report, if a credit history at all. So if they meet this criteria, this is the criteria for somebody to rent your place out. The criteria for renting your place out isn't where they're from, isn't what their religious background is, isn't, their sexual orientation, isn't whether they're male or female, or isn't necessarily their age either. These are all discrimination. It's all discrimination to discriminating factors that are used against people when they're trying to rent places all the time. So when I started out in real estate, as most realtors do, I started in 2015. I've always tried my best to represent tenants to the best of my abilities, but I find there's a lot of issues that come up. Asking for a tenant to supply 6 months or a year in rent in advance is not allowed. People need to stop doing it. It's an irritating thing. And asking for photo ID. I've torn realtors a new one a couple of times over asking for photo IDs. I had this conversation with somebody in my office who ran into the same thing. He had clients that he was representing, trying to find them a new rental, and there were very wealthy clients of his. They were looking to rent. Their income was fantastic. They should really probably be looking at buying, but they were looking at renting at the moment, and that's their choice whether they want to rent or buy. And he said, and I've run into this too, where all the paperwork is submitted, everything's great, and then you'll get a text or an email asking for photo ID. And I don't understand, and I've shared my opinion on this before with agents who have asked me for it. Why are you asking me to send you their photo ID or their driver's license so you can judge them based on appearance? That is the only legitimate reason I can see for it. It's my job representing them to vet these people and make sure that their address and their name and all of their information is correct. I'm not just, getting Bob from off the street here or whoever and just putting down random information for things. I'm looking these people up to make sure that I'm not wasting my time representing them, just putting out applications all over the place. I mean, that's crazy. Don't ask me for photo ID because you're going to piss me off. And like I said, the only reason that I see for somebody asking me for photo ID of my client is because you want to judge them based on appearance. That is it. You know, if they can afford the place, they don't have much debts, and they got good credit, that's all you need to know, period. If you want to meet them to discuss and see how their personality is, that's cool. You know, there's no problem with that because that's more on a personal level. My regular landlords who I work for and find them tenants for their properties, they're all excellent people. They're not racist. They're not biased towards, you know, age or gender or any of these things. They will judge people only, and I shouldn't say judge, but they will only look at the paperwork and see if financially they can afford to rent their property out. That's it. You know, they rent to people from all different backgrounds, and they're wonderful clients. One of the only clients, or some of the only clients that I have ever fired are those who I've brought multiple tenants to, who are landlords, and have told me, I don't like this person. You know, I don't like this person. I don't like this person. And, you know, it got to the point where I'm like, I've brought you multiple clients who easily can afford to pay for your rental property. They have excellent credit. They work full time. There's no reason why these people shouldn't be allowed to rent your place out. I mean, yeah, it's your place. That's fine. But what is the reasoning behind you not wanting to rent there? And I asked them flat out. I'm going to speak in one case in particular. I asked them flat out. I said, you know, what is it that you think they're going to do to your house or do in your house that you think they're going to be a problem, or that's different than anybody else who might rent it, who is Canadian or who is this or who is that? What do you think it is these people are going to do in your house? And I'm not going to say what he said because it is so absolutely absurd. I couldn't believe a grown man would say this. Like, I've never forgot it. It was that crazy. You know, we talk about different groups and different backgrounds and things like that, and the bias that this gentleman had against these people. I actually fired him. I said, you know what? Here's your keys back. I'm not representing you because I've brought you multiple clients already. None of them were good enough, and that's just because you're racist. You know, like I do feel you should have a say who rents out your property. It is your property, but at the same time, I don't feel that you should be discriminatory against everybody because, as I've already said, we're all here due to immigration anyways. Unless we're natives, who are we to say who can and can't be here? You know, everybody has the same rights as everybody else to be in Canada, as far as I'm concerned, unless you're taking advantage of things or abusing the system or doing something that you shouldn't to kind of ruin Canada. You know, those are the only reasons I can see anybody not wanting to be here. And I don't want anybody to take that out of context either when I say abusing the system, because there are Canadians, you know, white Canadians and people from all different backgrounds that abuse the system here in Canada. I mean, eventually you're going to get caught for it, but it happens, you know, by different ages, different genders, different races, all kinds of things. So, I mean, don't take that out of context. That could be anybody. So don't ask me for photo ID. Don't ask me to submit 6 months or a year up front in rent. That's not fair. And be open. My best neighbors aren't born here. They're immigrants to Canada. I'm here because of immigration. You're here because of immigration. Most people are. So I don't want to see the discrimination based on, you know, age, sex, background, sexual orientation, or, you know, whatever else. I don't want to see those things happening. If they can afford to pay and they don't have huge debts and they have good income, they work, or, you know, maybe they don't work because people on Ontario Works or Ontario Disability Support Program, they're discriminated against probably even more than immigrants are. You know, they don't make a lot of money, but, you know, I find some of the biggest issues often aren't so much even race related, they're income related. So I can understand if somebody can't afford to pay for your place, you're not going to rent it out to them. It doesn't make sense. But just discriminating against somebody because they're unhealthy or they're an immigrant or sexual orientation, gender, you're not allowed to put those things into applications. Although I've seen them before, prefer only female or prefer only male. I see prefer only female is much more common, which it is discriminatory. I understand if you're a female and you're looking to share a house or something, like wanting another female in there. I can understand that it is discrimination. I understand it though. You're going to be a lot more comfortable with a female in there. I mean, it kind of reminds me of the movie Single White Female, but I'm not going to get into that and freak anybody out either. But be open. I find some of my best neighbors and best people most peaceful. And some of you might disagree with me, and that's fine. You can if you want, because I'm speaking based on my experiences. But some of the most peaceful, kindest, genuine people I know have been immigrants, and they've been Muslim. I'm gonna say it. They have been. My like I said, my neighbor across the street, him and his wife are fantastic neighbors. I would invite them into my house anytime. They've brought me over. They might have a party with relatives over there, and I had them bring me over food several times. It's Bangladeshi food. It was fantastic. His wife's an excellent cook, and I would prefer to have neighbors in my neighborhood, regardless of your background, especially if you're kind. When they walk by, they have the biggest smiles on their faces, and they say hello every time they have a discussion with me. And they are just 10 out of 10 people. I wish all of my neighbors were like that. For the most part, I get along with all of my neighbors, but I do have a neighbor who I've had a falling out with, and I prefer, I just don't talk to them. I don't create any dramas or anything like that. They've just gone their ways. I've got mine, and that's fine. But my neighbors, my favorite neighbors, are across the street, and they're Muslim, and they're from Bangladesh. They're so kind and so genuine, and every time I see them, they've got such a big smile. It lights up my day. They say hi, Jamie, with such enthusiasm. It's incredible. So I wish all my neighbors were like that. They're immigrants. Don't be so harsh on immigrants. Life's difficult for them. They're making a lot of changes here. And if they're just looking for a place to live and you're like, oh, I want this, you need to understand that they might not be able to provide that. And that doesn't make them bad people. It doesn't make them more risky. All of the tenants, the professional tenants that I've seen in multiple court cases, for the most part, they've been Canadians, they've been white, and they've lived here, their entire lives. Typically, they're in their 40s or 50s. They just know how to work the system for years. And I want everybody to stop, take a moment, and kind of think about, put yourself, the reason for a lot of misunderstanding is because we don't consider things from others' perspectives. Think about how your relatives came here years ago, if you're a white Canadian or something like that. Think about how your relatives came here, with the change in their pocket and the clothes on their back and got established here, the struggles that they faced, because we've had, I find it comes in waves. We had Irish in the past. We've had, I remember when I lived in Scarborough, we had a wave of Jamaicans that came through. Mexicans I'm noticing a lot of Mexicans immigrating to Canada right now. I'm noticing Ukrainians because of the war. And let me ask you this, we've opened up our homes. A lot of us have opened up our homes to Ukrainians because of what's going on in Ukraine, the war that's going on there. But we're not as willing to open up our homes to people, say, who have faced war in their countries, such as maybe Afghanistan or something like that. These were beautiful countries in the past, just absolutely devastated by war. So, don't be so quick to invite one group in and not the other. I think keep an open mind and learn about other cultures. One thing I love, because I'm a foodie, one thing I love about immigration is the foods that they bring here. I mean, I'm open to trying new things when there's new restaurants that open up. I love to go and try them out. You know, different African foods or Middle Eastern or whatever. I'm all for it. I absolutely love different foods from around the world because let's face it, our North American cuisine is not healthy and it's not tasty. You know, one of my absolute favorite restaurants is an Indian restaurant. The food is so fragrant and so tasty. It's just incredible. So be open to all of these people and put yourself in their position. Understand that things aren't easy for them, and they're just trying to make a better life for themselves and their families. If there's more things that you want me to discuss in regards to real estate, feel free to leave a comment. I'd love for you to follow me, subscribe, share my videos if you know somebody who might want to see one of my videos. Reach out. This is Jamie Stokes from Royal LePage out. Take care for now.